saw this coming. In August of 2023, I sent a text message to somebody saying, I don't think these immigration levels are sustainable. The person responded saying, it's not, but they're going to have some serious labor issues. And I said, one way or the other, there's going to be problems. 2024 saw the biggest year in Canadian immigration changes. Canadian immigration is forever changed. But is it actually changed? Or is it kind of just going back to what it was when it was more conservative? Now, whenever I try to explain to somebody what's going on in immigration right now, I compare it to you have a house and you go up back and you're deciding to, you know what, we're going to set a little campfire. A little fire like this. You set the fire, you go inside, and you come back outside. You leave the fire unattended, and your whole backyard and the whole forest behind it is on fire. And the only thing left to do at that point is damage control. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing them clean up the mess because the place is on fire. So let us recap the changes of 2024. If you are looking to come to Canada right now, is it the right time right now? Is now the right time? We're going to answer that question for you. And if you are a temporary resident in Canada right now, what now? What do you do with all these changes? How do you become part of the selection of the 395,000 people of 3 million people who will get permanent residency in 2025? Let's dive into those changes. If you find value after watching this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to this channel. So here are some of the biggest changes. They ended flag polling. So flag polling is when you used to be able to go to the border on land, turn around at the border and get a Canadian study permit or a work permit. They're cutting that out. End of flag polling, and it was announced on December 23rd. IRCC is going to remove the LMIA points from the express entry CRS score. So LMIA job offer used to be able to give you like about 50 points in express entry. Not anymore. In fact, in the past, those points used to be 600 points. Now it's 50. Now it's 0. So we saw where spouse open work permits, spouses used to be able to come with their partners who are studying at any program as an international student. But now, your international student, you have to be a master's program in at least 16 months in duration. PGWP eligibility. Before now, you could have just come to Canada, study anything, get a work permit, and make your way through the system. Now, you will only get a work permit if they've seen that the program is in line with occupations in long-term labor shortages. So they've identified agriculture, agri-food, education, healthcare, STEM, trade, and transport. And they have a whole list of the programs that are eligible for PGWP. So if you're not studying in any of these programs, you will not get a work permit. And this is for people who would have applied for a study permit after November the 1st, 2024. We saw this change very recently, just this week. The agri-food pilot cap has been reduced. So before it was about 1,775, and now it's down to 1,010. So they're cutting numbers, they're cutting programs, they're doing all kinds of stuff. Even the refugee programs got nipped, and they are pausing some streams of refugee programs. Student Direct Stream and the Nigeria Student Express allowed certain people from certain countries to get like an expedited process or a faster process of a study permit to come and study in Canada. So Antigua and Barbuda, Belize, China, Colombia, Costa Rica, India, a bunch of countries that are on here, and Nigeria for the Nigeria Student Direct Stream for prospective university students. This is now chopped. The visitor to worker, chop. For the first time ever, there's a cap on temporary residents. So imagine now there are 3 million temporary residents. As of the third quarter of 2024, there are 3 million temporary residents in Canada. This number has never been capped. This amount of people has never been capped. This is where you saw people come to study, people come with their spouses, everything, and no chopping block. Parent and grandparent, this is the most recent change that came out this week, that parents and grandparents will accept no new applications. Before now, parent and grandparent has been a little sketchy anyway, because they've been accepting applicants who submitted interest from 2020 and all of that stuff. So it's kind of just been on the chopping block to some extent, or been on the go slow. But now we know that they're accepting no new applications. There will not be a window that opens to submit interest. They're going to focus on processing applications that were received in 2024 for 2025. What's not new, right? So these are just some of the changes. I'm sure probably I missed 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. But regardless of what the changes are, not all the changes affect you, right? And not all the changes are bad. We did see where they did announce that there's going to be the new rural community pilot program, which will replace the rural and northern pilot program, and a francophone community pilot program, which is in line with their goals to build the francophone, which is a French-speaking community outside of Quebec. So there's new things are opening. Most things are not opening. Most things happening are not to the benefit of anybody in Canada right now. However, let's talk some numbers. So I said, okay, there's 3 million people, 3 million temporary residents in Canada right now. Of the 3 million, only 395,000 will get permanent residency in 2025. But one, understand that of the 3 million, not everybody's permit expires in 2025, right? Some people have permits that maybe expire in 2027. So they could get permanent residency, but they are not necessarily as urgent as people whose permits are going to expire in 2025. However, even though they have a long permit, it doesn't mean that they cannot be selected for permanent residency in 2025. So you have to keep that in mind. It's not like the government is going to say, oh, this person's permit is expiring, let's choose them over the other person. It's a numbers game. It's what's your express entry score? What immigration program are you going for? How eligible are you? And how good of a candidate are you for Canada? Now, understand too that the 395,000 includes parents and grandparents, refugees, humanitarian and compassionate, business class, and other classes of immigration that are not applicable to persons who probably came and studied as an international student, who are not refugees, or people who are on a work permit right now, who don't meet any of those criteria, right? So 395,000 is the overall gap, but of that, only about 232,000 will come from the economic pool, which means that the numbers are even smaller. And I know these numbers sound big, but I want you to think that there's 3 million people right now gunning for the same thing. So with all of that, is now the right time for you who are outside of Canada to come to Canada? No. If you know me, you know that I've never told anybody not to come to Canada. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Christina, and I've been here for 10 years, and I came as an international student. Actually, this month makes it 11 years. And I will never say, no, don't come to Canada. It's not a good time. No. I won't say that because everybody's situation is different. There is no one size fits all, and there is no one answer for that. The best thing for you to do, right? Because at the end of the day, the reason why Canada can't just shut off the immigration tap is because the labor market needs skilled people who are either not applying for the jobs quickly enough, or cannot be found in Canada, or are not in Canada. However, understanding where these labor shortages are and where the long-term shortages are is where you will have to build your strategy. You coming to Canada is not about you, according to Canada. Like, from Canada's perspective, it's not about you. It's about what you can bring to Canada, okay? Not your life goals of living in foreign. So how do you strategize such that that answer to that question can be a yes or a no, right? Are you a welder? Are you in a skilled trade? Are you in STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics? Are you in healthcare? Are you in a field that Canada needs? Yes? Okay, then let's see what kind of immigration pathway suits you based on your profile. Are you a person in business administration? Are you somebody in human resources? Are you somebody in project management right now that's not in IT? Canada doesn't really need you right now. So are you going to pivot and get into a field that Canada needs alongside, because human resources can be human resources within healthcare, human resources can be human resources within STEM, right? Project management, IT project management. So this is where strategy is going to have to come together to you. So asking the question, what's the best way for me to come to Canada? No. What do you bring to the table that Canada needs? And the best way you can do that is to understand what Canada needs. What and who, obviously, because it's a who thing, right? That question is not a question that is a yes or a no answer. It's based on your individual profile, and there are opportunities for people who Canada needs, and for people who Canada does not need, the opportunities are either more slim, or you have to be a lot more strategic than just showing up. You know what I mean? So there's the answer to that. Get with an immigration consultant. This time, guys, for the last 10 years or so, no, let's not say 10 years, because up until about 2022, immigration was a lot more predictable. The express entry was a lot more predictable. Do it yourself was a lot more achievable because it was predictable. Now it is not predictable. You saw all these changes that happened in 2024, and more are coming in 2025, especially if there is a change in government. That could turn the whole thing upside down. But without that, obviously, they're having to clean up the Immigration Act. The place is on fire. Them have to out it somehow. And it's going to take a while to be out, right? This is not the time for do it yourself. Okay? It isn't the time for that. A lot of people are costing themselves a lot more money by trying to save themselves money by just going and paying for some advice. Okay? This is not the time. I'm seeing a lot of people do it, and hindsight is 2020, but hindsight is nothing if you have an expired permit. Now is not the time to be poking around. What is good is that you are getting the information. Yes, you are empowered to understand that there's this route, and this route. Here's where I can go. You need to come up with a strategy, and you need help to come up with a strategy. You don't need to get that from me. I'm not an immigration consultant. I have immigration consultants that I can recommend, but get it from somebody who is licensed to give you proper advice to figure out how to navigate 2025. So for my folks that are here, my temporary residents, you are near and dear to me because I was you. I was once you. But right now you are in a lot more turbulent waters than I was back in my day. I was a part of the very first year of express entry, which means that before that, I had no clue what was going to happen for me. Okay? Literally no clue. And I had 1 year to figure it out. Thank God express entry opened up in the nick of time. Okay? The reason you're near and dear to me is because I can see the direction that Canada is going. And I'm seeing that you guys aren't seeing that. So I have a couple of suggestions for my people who are temporary residents here in Canada. The same message that I just gave about DIY immigration is for people outside of Canada and inside of Canada. Right now, being cheap is going to get really expensive. Especially if you kind of spent a lot of money to come here. You gave up all kind of stuff to be here. And you come and then it all falls apart and you have to figure out another strategy, which is going to cost a lot more money, right? If you have to move, relocate, set up life again somewhere else, which is not the end of the world, but it can cost you money. I do want to urge you guys to get proper help. Even if it costs several $1,000s, you need to determine what your immigration goals are worth. Okay? So that is going to be my first message to you guys. The second message is you have to be strategic about the information that you know. And this is kind of going to tie back into don't DIY it, right? Knowing something in isolation. So let us say like, oh, everybody's talking about French. Do French, learn French. French is the key. Like if you know French, you're good. Maybe. Everything is not one size fits all, right? But knowing French has to go alongside. Are you in the right knock and the right tier in Canada? right? How old are you? Does express entry even work for you alongside having that French? Will you have to do French in a different province? Will you have to go into another French stream in a different province? Just knowing information in isolation and acting upon that information could be to your detriment. So you want to be strategic. That's okay. So say for instance, you do learn French. To get in the express entry pool, you have to be either a federal skilled worker, Canadian experience class, or a federal skills trades worker. That remains, which means that you have to have at least 1 year work experience in a tier 0 to 3. If you don't have that outside of Canada, you don't have that inside Canada, just French alone won't necessarily give you the result that you're looking for unless you understand the full strategy, right? So you have to be strategic. Don't act upon isolated information. You know a lot of information. You're watching a lot of YouTube. You're reading all of this. You know all of that. Yes, go to somebody who's going to help you to tie it all together and figure out how it applies to you. Even if it's like a one conversation, you have it at the beginning of the year, so you can know where you stand. It's not helpful to be acting on isolated information, and then you get to the end of the road and you're like, oh wait, I missed a detail. Okay, so a holistic approach. So your age, your tier, your NOC, French, PNP, Atlantic Canada, all of that needs to tie together, right? At some point, there's some provinces that don't penalize, but I guess so. Penalize in terms of they will take points away from you if you studied and lived outside of the province, for example. And it's probably likely that some other province will start doing that to avoid people from province hopping. I don't know. That's just my thoughts, right? But I see it's either Manitoba or Saskatchewan. I believe it's Manitoba. Manitoba Provincial Nominee Program deducts 100 points from their PNP ranking system if you've studied out of Canada, and they deduct another 100 points if you've lived or worked outside of Canada, outside of Manitoba. Sorry. So if you lived, worked, studied outside of the province. Just saying. So you have to have a strategic, holistic approach. The third thing is that you have to decide and go. You have to decide and take action, especially if you are thinking about moving to another province, finding a new job, whatever the case is. Like you could lose 3 months of time just in the decision-making process, and then you're down to the wire. Understand that when you just go and show up in another province and you do get a job, which I'm hoping for you, right? An employer isn't going to say, oh, you came over here to get immigration? Perfect. Here's a job. Here's the immigration papers. Go do your thing. No, right? Some of them have a probation period that's 3 months. Some of them have a probation period that's 6 months. And they want to get to know you to see if you are worth the trouble of filling out whatever paperwork. A lot of employers have been burnt in some provinces by people coming there, using them for immigration, and then leaving once they have permanent residency. There are some people that don't even have the common decency to quit. They just don't show up for work. So they make it bad for the good do-gooders who want to come and then honestly stay in the province, right? So you have to have a whole strategy behind relocation to give yourself time to get it done. There's provinces like Newfoundland and Labrador, for example, that says you can't apply for PNP if you only have less than four months on your work permit. At the time of applying, you have to at least have 4 months validity on your work permit. So imagine if you go with the 4-month thing, you get a job and somebody's willing to help you, you can't apply for PNP because of the time, right? So all of these things have to be taken into consideration. Holistic plan, and it come right back to point number 1, get somebody to help you build out a proper strategy. And the fourth thing is you have to stay accountable and you have to stay organized. Why I say accountable is because it's so easy to say, you know what, I'm going to start looking for a job in Nova Scotia, and a week passes and you've not looked for one job, or you've not applied to one job, or you've not updated your resume. And it's easy for time to pass and not realize, like, I have a 103-day streak in Duolingo, and I cannot fathom the fact that when I downloaded that app, 103 days have passed. It feels like yesterday. And that is how time is passing right now, right? And so you have to be accountable. You have to stay on top of things. You have to stay organized, and you have to know what your deadlines are. So I have an accountability program, a TR to PR accountability program, to help you guys stay on top of your deadlines, stay on top of your job searches, help you to update your resume, because I want you to see you guys succeed. I am doing this genuinely out of pure passion. I have a construction background, understand that, and I like my field, okay, and it was fine. But here, I genuinely want to help you guys to succeed and win, because I am seeing the changes. I'm seeing what's happening. I'm seeing the behind the scenes of why these changes are happening and how they apply to you. Whereas you guys are in the mess. It's hard to see when you're in the mess. I am like a bird's eye view up in the sky, seeing the thick smoke and them out in the fire. I mean, like, oh, so they're deploying forces there, and there, and I can see the strategy, and I can help you guys to just stay accountable, stay online, stay on track, not to replace immigration consultancy. You need to have the advice. Once you have the advice, you have to execute. How are you going to execute? You have a job, you have kids, you have this, you have that. I want to help you guys through my accountability program. So the details to that is going to be linked below. You can check that out. Within the accountability program, there's career coaching and resume update, and the Atlantic Immigration Program job list, which is jobs specific to the Atlantic Immigration Program. So it's employers who are designated, who have jobs that are in NOCs or tiers that are eligible for the program, and also NOCs or tiers that are not necessarily closed. Some of them are in some of the industries that were paused in 2024. We're not seeing any updates right now, so we're going to see how things progressed based on that. But you get access to the job list, you get access to career coaching, there's a resume course, and then you get me weekly to work with you to keep you on target, to keep you accountable, keep you on top of your goals, and to help you if you are trying to do any kind of moving, maneuvering, relocating, whatever the case is, right? So check that out. Please, I implore you guys, this is not the year to lay back. But you can if it's not super important to you to stay. And I'm not saying that as like reverse psychology, because sometimes taking a step back, going back home, if home is safe, is not necessarily a bad thing. Canada right now is expensive. The political climate is kind of, if the government change, there's a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment. So taking a break from Canada is not the end of the world. I promise you that. If you have to go home, I have a video on what happens if you have to leave. You can check that out. Link is also in the description. Check out that video. If it comes to that, what happens if you have to leave? Is it the end of the world? What should you do then? Check that out. So a lot of things happened in 2024. If you are looking to come to Canada right now and you need to understand what is Canada looking for, who does Canada need, Module 1 of my masterclass will help you to understand what that is, who that is. And for my people who are here as temporary residents, Module 2 of the masterclass will help you to figure out, okay, that's what Canada needs. How do I fit myself into that basket to get myself aligned and picked? This is going to be a very crucial year for immigration, and only 7% or so will be chosen for permanent residency this year, and that is not a lot of people. And as the year progresses, we could see a lot more things pause, cut, chop, whatever, and we see that provinces have full liberty over their provincial nominee programs to just pause things, okay? And if they wanted, just like it did with grandparents and grandparent, they could say, we're not accepting any new applications, we're just going to process what we did for 2024, because they got a lot in 2024, okay? So you have to be prepared, you have to be strategic, you have to have more than one plans. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I feel for you because I understand what it's like to be in that space of like that place of uncertainty. You can't plan your future. You don't know if you must stay or go. You don't know if you should buy a car or something. Like, I didn't buy, until I was a permanent resident, I didn't buy anything that couldn't fit in a suitcase. Everything that I had was going to go back in a suitcase and go back with me to Jamaica if I had to leave, which is like a very minimalistic way of living, and it has actually followed me through to this my 11th year in Canada. I still have some of those ways, which I think are a symptom of post-immigration stress disorder. Honestly, I understand that you're living in a survival mode right now, and I understand that things are tricky right now, and I feel for you. right? You can, if you're here in Canada as a temporary resident, join my private community and masterclass. Please go through the modules for your own good. It is free. And please go to an immigration consultant. I can recommend a few to you. Go to an immigration consultant, please, for the love of God, and get help. Okay? Come to my accountability program. Work with me on a monthly basis. My first cohort is going to be a limited number of people, so I'm not going to take everybody. I'm going to have a limited number of people that I'm going to work with to hold them accountable and coach them through the first quarter of 2025. So this will be kind of like the Hunger Games, maybe not as intense, but maybe just a little bit. Okay, so what good. I wish the best for you guys in 2025. Happy New Year, and I will see you in the next video. If this was helpful to you, please hit the like button, share it with somebody you know. Feel free to subscribe if this was helpful, to stick around for more helpful videos like this. And watch the next video.